Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Tron Identity. It's a video game it's probably on other platforms, but I played it on Nintendo Switch. So, as always, I'm going to give you good, the bad, and the furry. To start off with furry, there isn't any. Moving on to the good and the bad. So, this is a choose-your-own-adventure type of game. It is entirely text-based. There is absolutely no dialogue, nothing spoken throughout, and the soundtrack, maybe it's not terrible, but when you go into a Tron game that has the Tron Legacy style of graphics, and then it's just the most boring, basic bullshit as opposed to something by Daft Punk, it's a little annoying. It sucks. The music sucks, and since there is no dialogue, and no real sound effects are needed. There's some interspersed, but you don't need them. So watch this on mute and play like the Tron Legacy soundtrack while you play. And with this, what I like is that it gives you the option. It's called autoplay, but like essentially what it does is you can choose the speed that the text appears, so just kind of based on your reading speed, and you can turn that on where it'll just like keep on going through until it comes to a decision point for you. And what I like is that you can adjust that speed as well as at any point like essentially pause it so that the autoplay of the text stops, so that, let's say that for the most part you're reading fast, but then there was something weird, you're like, wait, and so you pause so you have time to read it before it disappears, and then you have to make your choices. It's not quick time choices like whatever that Ellen Page movie or game was back in the day. It's not like that. It's not any of the Heavy Rain type of like quick play, like, oh, you got to make that choice. It gives you all the time in the world once you get to a decision point. And I will say that I played it through twice because it only takes about 2 hours the first time. At least for me, it only took about 2 hours, and that was reading through everything and like clicking on all the things that I could, because you can during some points of the dialogue you can like move the other cursor around to select things that are visible just in the room that you're in to see more about it. So I did all that jazz and just played it through the way that I wanted to play it through. The first time, it only took 2 hours. The next time around, I played the exact opposite, essentially. Now, there's usually 3 options for the dialogue choices, so I played as much as I could the opposite of how I did play, and vastly, vastly different outcomes. So I did enjoy that aspect of it. For being a game that's only about 2 hours long, I thought there was an interesting expansion of the Tron Legacy universe. It was fun to see their interpretation of what trees are, how data is, and what could be happening. I did feel like they didn't really adequately explain what the heck the crux of the issue was, like the thing that you find out through the course of your investigation. I don't want to ruin that because I want you to do that for yourself. But I feel like even playing through it twice, I was like, so that's the thing? Is this a different thing? What's going on here? So I would have liked a little bit more of that, but I thought that it was worth the $15 because of the fact that, with how expensive movies are, and this gives me 2 hours of entertainment, more of the Tron universe. And, there is also this mini game that apparently is so fun that they, in the main menu screen, they give you the option to just play endlessly. It's sort of a Tronized version of, I don't know, maybe Bejeweled or Gemmed or whatever one of those match. So it's a thing where you can either match the little symbol or match the number, and then you can only move over so far, but there's blocking things, and it does a good job of every time they introduce a new element to you, they give you the chance to try it out in the practice where they're like, now do this to see what it does for this, and now do this. Okay, now do it on your own. Okay, now here's the real thing. And you, of course, can skip through any of those. But I personally was in it for the storyline, so maybe why it only took me 2 hours is that as soon as I realized that if you just hit the, essentially, pause button as soon as you're able to take over the controls yourself of those matching things, you're defragging people, taking their identity disk and, defragging it is the reason for it. But I just wanted the story. I didn't care about the little actiony things, so every time one of those things popped up, I was just like, skip! And it was like, oh, this is what you discovered. So as far as I can tell, it didn't keep me from discovering anything by skipping it, because it was like, oh, this is the memory you discovered, and this is the thing. So, as far as I can tell, anything that I was supposed to discover for the story, when I clicked skip, it was just like, oh, and you finished defragging. Good job. here's what you discovered. So that I enjoyed because I was in it for the storyline and for the dialogue, not for the, like, essentially a weird minigame, in my opinion. As I said, you can have vastly different story outcomes. It does feel almost a little unfinished because, you know, one of the ways that I played through, I was like, wait, but what happens with that character or that other character? Like, what happens there? And then the other time that I played through, I was like, well, I guess that's one thing. That's one way for things to end with this, that, or the other character. I still would have liked a little bit more, and I think that this feels like it would be a good setup, like an initial setup to see what direction you're going to take a game. So because of how vastly different the outcomes could be, I think it would be an interesting thing to have that be your starting thing for like a Mass Effect type of game where you have this little storyline thing, hopefully with, you know, actual audio, actual voice actors, but they don't. It just, the game's over. That's it. It ends. So, it's kind of one of those, movies that set themselves up for sequels, like they kind of solve the initial issue, but like they're clearly sequel baiting. It definitely has that feel to it. Maybe they'll get one eventually, but if you don't like that sequel baiting feel to an ending, then maybe skip this one. But if you're like me, who really, really likes both Tron and Tron Legacy and can't get enough, this has beautiful visuals for a visual novel style game, and it's in the Tron Legacy style format, which I love, and it does Tron-y things, and I like that. So that's what I have. But spoiler alert, I'm gonna get into some spoilers for the storyline. So what I thought was kind of funny is that you couldn't be too douchey to the librarian. Like the first time around, I was super nice to her and super understanding, and then the second time around, it was just like, oh, you didn't impress her. Like I was trying to be as much of a dick as I could, but the dialogue options just weren't there. And then same thing with the guard person who ends up being the explodey person. You can't, like, no matter what, the dialogue options don't get to the douchey range. Like you cannot be an asshole to that guy, which is just interesting because you can definitely be an asshole, like, from the very beginning, like, unnecessarily asshole-ish to the security guard right at the very beginning, and then you can be a jackass to the true believer guy up in his office, and then you can be an asshole to the green chick, but you can't be an asshole to the guard, and you really can't be one to the librarian chick, which I thought was an interesting thing, like the story limitations there, because you had to gain that guard's trust. And had I not been trying to play things super differently, I don't know, like, would I have noticed that you can't be mean to him to be like, oh, that's the guy that is the crux of the story, but he clearly is. And yeah, but overall, fun game. Give it a shot. Good graphics, no dialogue, no audio. Just listen to Tron Legacy soundtrack while you play. That's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you the next one. Bye.